Hello, my name's Richard. I'm a chaplain with an organisation called MHA, and we care for people in later life. So I suppose you could say that conversations about death and dying are part and parcel of going with the territory, really. I have to say that they're not something that we do every day by any manner of means. And Ted asked me if I would just offer some reflections from the experience I've had doing this particular ministry about conversations around death and dying. I'm not sure that I've got anything particularly earth-shattering to offer, but maybe one or two points that I might like to make, maybe you'll be able to discuss at greater length. I think the one overall thing that I would want to say is that if we are going to be participating in discussions with people about their death, about what happens after their death, we need to be very, very secure in our own attitudes towards death. We need to have worked that through, and we need to be comfortable and secure in that. We really don't want to impose our own feelings about the subject onto other people. So, for example, if we find death frightening, if it's something that fills us with dread and horror, then really we don't want that coming across in the conversations that we're having. Perhaps a more realistic problem that some Christians can find that they have is that they find death so completely not frightening and so completely a whole breeze that actually it's easy not to give other people the opportunity to be frightened and to be fearful and to feel dread. So that's the first point I would say. Let's look at what our own feelings about death are. Let's make sure we're secure and comfortable with that, and therefore we can give people the space that they need in order to explore their own feelings about it. I suppose maybe the thing that's most on your mind is how do you go about starting conversations with somebody about death and dying? My answer to that would be very straightforward, that largely you don't. It's a bit rude, isn't it, really? Somebody's going ahead, minding their own business, enjoying their day, having a cup of tea, doing whatever they're doing. You wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it if somebody came over and started a conversation with the words, "When you die." You don't really want to hear that, do you? More constructive is actually to be alert to when people give you the signals that that is what they want to talk about. It may be in my job that people will and do actually say to me, "Can you pop in, because I'd like to discuss the arrangements for my funeral." But more often, people give you little hints that this is on their mind, which if you're alert, you can actually pick up on. So, for example, if somebody else has died, you might hear phrases like, "When it's my turn, just put me in a plastic bag and chuck me on the tip." Don't dismiss that. The best thing to do is say, "Do you really mean that?" And if they say, "Well, no, not really," then you can say, "Well, do you want to talk about exactly what you would like?" Again, sometimes if people have been to a funeral or heard about funerals or heard about somebody's death, they'll start to say, "Well, when it's my turn," or "Oh, that was lovely," or "That wasn't lovely, that was horrendous, I hated it." And again, that gives you the opportunity to say, well, kindly and gently, "Well, what do you want? Do you know what you would like?" But always with the proviso that if somebody says, "I don't want to talk about it," you back off and you leave it alone. Again, around conversations about what somebody does or does not want as their life draws to a close, I think as well, it's always a good thing to give due weight to the things that they do not want, as well as the things that they do. With the best will in the world, it's not always possible to bring about for somebody everything that they might want. But I think it is possible to prevent most things that they do not. And that actually might involve us in some awkward conversations, because it may very well be that they do not want a particular person or a particular group of people to be there towards the end of their life. And that is a conversation where friends, family, chaplains have to act as gatekeeper. So do think about those things that people do not want. And lastly, I think we need to ask ourselves the question when it comes to after someone has died, and their funeral services, who is the funeral for? And I have to confess, I'm old-fashioned, I'm a traditionalist, and I say hand on heart that in large part the funeral service is for the person who has died. I do actually think that matters. I do actually think that as the last thing that we can do for someone on this earth, I think that it is important that it is for them. You might want to talk about that. You can have a good theological discussion about it, can't you? But we need to hold that intention with, I think, an indisputable fact that a funeral service is actually for the mourners who are there, and it needs to be meaningful and comforting for them. I'll give you an example of what I meant. One of my residents a little while ago had gone for years and years and years saying to her niece, her closest family member, and to me, when it's my turn, I just want the Our Father, and then you can roll me out the back. I don't want anything else. And I would often say, do you mean that? Yes, I mean that. I just want no music, no fuss. I just want the Our Father, and then roll me out the back. 2 or 3 days before she passed away, and she knew the end was near, I was with her, and she said to me, Richard, you will do my service for me when it comes, won't you? I said, of course I will. What do you want? And she said, oh, look, not a lot of fuss. Do whatever you think best. It'll be fine. The problem was that this roll me in, have the Our Father and roll me back out again had lodged in the mind of her nearest and dearest, and I could not shift it. I really could not shift it. I managed to barter them up from just the Our Father to the prayers of commendation and the Our Father and the proper committal and then a quick blessing, but no more. And so on the day of the funeral, this friend of mine was carried into the crematorium chapel in deadly silence. There was prayer of commendation, the Our Father, the committal, the curtains were shut. I gave one blessing, and then we walked out in stony silence. At the end of the service, her niece was in floods of tears, and she said that was horrible, that was awful. Fortunately, I was able to organise a few days later to have a celebratory service of thanksgiving and remembrance, which actually took the sting of that away. So just be a little bit careful sometimes, even if someone has quite extreme ideas about what they would like or not like at their funeral. Respecting that person's wishes, yes, it is for them, but we've also got to bear in mind that people are there and they're grieving and they're hurting and they want something which is actually appropriate and meaningful and comforting and helps them to bring about a sense of closure. So I hope at least some of that has been helpful. I think what you're doing at the moment over there is absolutely terrific, and I think more of it should happen. So thank you for doing that. You're very much in my prayers, and I hope to see you all at some point perhaps. Bye for now.